Hey guys, it's Andrew here with 8020, and today we're going to be discussing tapers, how to do a taper. So you have a client that walks in that's got a little bit longer hair. They want to do a taper, but they don't want to shave the sides. So they just want to kind of do a taper right along the sides and letting everything else grow in. In this case, this client, he wants to grow out his hair a little bit. He used to have a kind of a mohawk with a V in the back, so we'll clean that up for him as well. But our main subject for today is going to be tapers. How do we do a taper into already grown in hair? And we're going to show you how to do all that. First things first, we're going to grab our comb and then we're going to comb out all his hair. We're going to put on the one guard fully open on the clipper. We're going to debulk and then we're going to start the taper. This is what this looks like. Okay, so when you grab your comb, we're gonna always make sure to comb down the hairs in the direction that they grow in. We wanna make sure that everything's combed out, there's no knots or nothing that's gonna be, get caught in the clipper. Also, it's a good time for you to see if maybe the client has any skin tags or moles or anything like that under. Usually clients that do have them will let you know ahead of time, but it's a good time for you to kind of just let your comb run through to make sure there's nothing that's gonna get caught. We're gonna grab our clipper, and here we're gonna be using the Loretto clipper. We're gonna put on the number one guard. We're gonna fully open it. With this guard, we're gonna be doing our first line. Now, how high do you take your taper? What shape do you do your tapers in? And there's different variations for each one. In this case, I like to do my tapers going up like this without going too far up the head. Usually my mark of having the taper done would be right along where the top of his ear meets that line. So if I put my comb on the top of his ear like that, essentially that's where my taper needs to be done. From skin to the number one guard fully open needs to be done here, and then I'm gonna clipper over comb a little bit to blend these hairs into the taper. With that being said, turn on your clipper and let's get our first line in. One thing to note, you don't want to go too far down his beard. Now we will be tapering his beard back in after, but ideally you want to start right at the middle of this part of the ear. So you're going to start from here, you're going to go all the way up to where we said we're going to be putting our comb and where the taper needs to be done. So now that that's done, now that we've done our first step, we're gonna grab our liner and we're gonna put our first line for the taper. This is gonna be your liner line. So we wanna make sure that, again, now that you've started going on a diagonal line, we're gonna continue this way. So when I put my liner in, I'm gonna turn it on and I'm gonna do it like this. This line will be about half a finger width of space, so you don't want to go too high up because you still have to use your clipper in order to fade, and you only have a small space. So the tapers usually are a little bit challenging because you have a small space in order to get the fade done. So this is where technique and just patience comes in, where when you are tapering, you're not accidentally moving your clippers too far out or too far up and taking too much, because the moment you do that, then we bring up everything a little bit higher. Next step up is we're gonna be putting in our second line. We're gonna use the clipper fully open, no guard, fully open. So this is fully closed, this is fully open. So we're gonna make sure it's fully open, and we're gonna go about half again. This is half a finger's width up. So this line is probably gonna run from this point of his ear all the way up to where the C curve starts to curve down straight. So it's gonna come just like that. If you notice, my movements are very small, and I'm using the corner of my blade in order to get that line perfect. So you see where I'm stopping? This is the top of his ear, kind of the bottom part, and this is where the C curve ends, and this is where I want to stop. So now that I have this line and that line, I'm gonna get rid of the bottom line first. In order to do that, just like any fade, we're gonna fully close the clipper and we're gonna start to use the edge of the blade in order to knock out some of these hairs. Once I do the first bit, I'm gonna open up my clipper by 1 notch, and then I'm gonna go a 2nd notch and then a 3rd notch. I don't need to go through every single notch necessarily if I see that it's already tapered in. You don't have to go through every single notch. Because this area sometimes is a little bit less dense than the rest of the hair, sometimes going through a couple of notches will get the taper done. So now that we have this line taken care of, what I want to do is I'm going to start working on this line. In order to get rid of this line, I'm going to put on my half guard fully open, and I'm going to start working on it. I'm going to soften that line out, and then I'll fully close it and I'll completely get rid of that line. So here's our half guard on the clipper. We're going to start again fully open. Anytime I put a new clipper on in order to do a step, I always want to start fully open. I want to play it safe. I don't want to go fully closed and then I take too much off. So we're going to go fully open with the half guard, and we're gonna soften out that line, and then we're gonna fully close it and completely get rid of that line. And if you notice, I'm using also the edge of my clipper. I don't have a lot of space to work, so I don't wanna go too high, and I don't wanna cover a big area. Now we fully close it, and we go on that line again. So now that that's done, now I can move into my clipper over comb section. This is where I'm gonna be blending this part into the longer hairs. Now it's very important, this is a taper. He wants to grow his hair out. He doesn't wanna, get rid of all this. So our clipper over comb technique is gonna be very small. We only wanna kind of break the edge of this line over here. We don't wanna go too high up. So in order to do that, you're gonna grab your clipper over comb, you're gonna put your comb in, and you wanna tilt it out. You don't want to keep it flush or you tilt it out a little bit. You want to come out pretty far out, just so you're not cutting too much off. Again, the client wants to grow it out. So you're going to go in, tilt it out, cut, and then you're going to comb the hair backward to see what that looks like. If you need to do a little bit more, you'll do a little bit more. If not, you stop. A lot of times barbers make mistakes by cutting too much off. We get too excited. We always want to keep cutting off. Sometimes you got to stop for a second, take a look at how things are sitting, and then decide what you want to do. There you go. So this taper is almost done. I do see right over here there's a little bit more thickness. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull my comb in and I'm gonna use the edge of my blade in order to tackle that specific area. Perfect. So now I can say that this taper is done. Now it looks a little bit rough because we haven't yet lined it up. Once we line it up and we put the frame on it, it's gonna look really good. So now we're gonna line up around his ear and we're gonna create the C-cup for him. This is what kind of makes the taper pop out, is when you clean out around this area and this area here. We're gonna, again, fine tune the taper with the liner once we do that. But to start, we're gonna go ahead and line up around his ear, and we're gonna line up the front. Turn on your liner, pull the client's ear back like so, using the edge of the blade. Create a line, then tilt it forward. Always against the grain. And then using the edge of the liner, we're gonna clean up around his ear, like we've showed you in other videos. Always make sure you clean those little hairs. Okay, so now that we have lined up around the ear, we've done the C-cup without taking it too far in. This is very important to remember. You don't want to take it too far in. And we've touched up the line over here. We don't want to push his hairline back in either. So just kind of clean it up to give it shape so it pops out even more. Now we're going to be tackling these little hairs over here that we were not able to get out with the clipper fully closed. I'm going to use my liner, use the edge, and we're going to go ahead and clean that up. There you have it. Now the taper is completely done from the liner into the top of the hair without going too far up. It's nice and clean, everything's blended in, and now the client can grow out his hair if he chooses to. Okay, so here once we finished up this taper, we did a quick beard taper, just faded in the beard. So it looks very nice when you have, when it starts from skin, it goes up and then it goes back down. So it's a very cool look. And then we just kind of cleaned up his beard a little bit from the back and from the top. And now we're gonna move on to the other side, and we're gonna do the taper again on the other side, same thing. Today we're not gonna focus too much on how we taper in the beard, we're just gonna focus on how to do the hair. If that's something you do wanna see us do, make sure you comment in the comment section below and let us know what you want to see, and we'll make sure to shoot a video specifically on how to taper in a beard like this. So on this side, we're just going to do the exact same steps. We're going to debulk, liner, and then we're going to do the taper. Here we have done the taper quickly. We followed the exact same steps that we did on the other side, but we also quickly threw in the beard taper and we lined them all up. So now, one last thing that I want to do. Now I'm going to be using my Loretto shaver, and I'm just going to be using the top blade, the one up top, to gently touch where I used my liner so that I can get a true skin taper. If you notice, my movement with the shaver is not going up, it's touching and going down, touching and going down, so that I don't create a very hard line. There you go. So now that we've used the shaver, we've kind of reached the skin, and now you have a skin taper going up and going into the beard. Again, thank you so much for watching, and if you found this very helpful and you learned some new tips and tricks, please make sure to follow and hit the subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.